All right, co-main event is a good one between two knockout artists, and Volkan Oezdemir and Aleksander Rakic. Rakic? I think it's Alexander Rakic. I just watched the fights earlier. I should know. I'm gonna go with Rakic. All right, but Rakic is a guy who is very long for the weight class and possesses incredible knockout power. Most recently, he just knocked out Jimmy Manuwa, but I mean, don't get me wrong, Jimmy Manuwa was a very good fighter, but he's older now, and a lot of guys have been knocking him out. I'm worried about that guy's fucking mental health moving forward, to be completely honest with you. Before that, he was fighting Devin Clark, knocked him out. He hit him with that like spinning back fist and then got on top of him and smothered him. Again, Devin Clark in this fight came out and tried to just... Also, you'll see that Rakic is very strong in the clinch, and he's able to get his back off the cage and return to center where he wants this fight to happen. Beat Justin Ledet before that and Francimar Barroso before that. So he started his UFC career off 4-0 right now. He's 12-1. His only loss was his professional debut against Christian Rodke in 2011. So 8 years since this guy has suffered a defeat. And like I said, utilizes his range very well, has really good kicks, really good punches. I mean, he's really good everywhere. And he's fighting a guy in Volkan Oezdemir who is very... Oezdemir has really good knockout power, but he wears himself out a little bit by expending too much energy early on, I think, right? Kind of saw that in the Anthony Smith fight where he had Anthony hurt at several points and probably was one of the first 2 rounds, but Smith took over in the third. Not that that's the only reason Smith won. Anthony Smith is a fucking dog. But fought against Dominic. The Dominic Reyes fight was weird because I thought in that fight that Volkan Oezdemir wasn't fighting... he wasn't fighting like himself. He wasn't really pushing forward and being overly aggressive and trying to land that knockout shot and, overwhelming Reyes with the strength. He kind of... It's like you got to find a mix, right? Like you got to find that mix between technicality and aggression. And I don't think he quite found it in that one. I personally, when I watched that fight, I remember thinking that Oezdemir won. But those kind of fights are fucking tough, man. Like if a fight's close and it ends up being a split decision and you think someone got robbed, I don't think that Oezdemir was robbed in that fight. It wasn't like watching Johnny Hendricks and GSP or something like that, right? But anyway, he goes in and fights Alir Latifi. Keeps things, he fights more of his fight. He's pressing forward. He's using the power in his hands. He's engaging in the clinch where he's very strong. And I think that's what this fight is going to come down to, man. It's going to come down to, is Oezdemir going to be able to get into Rakic's face and crowd his space and get him? I think that Oezdemir is going to have to use some footwork and his power. He has to threaten with his power to push Alexander Rakic up against the cage. If he can do that, because when you got a long guy with a lot of power, you're going to get hurt on the end of his punches and on the end of his kicks and stuff like that, right? So you have to crowd his space, and don't be surprised if you see early clinch battles from Oezdemir. I think he's going to try to close off the amount of space, like I said, and crowd Rakic out. And you're going to see some interesting clinch battles, especially early on because these guys are so strong. And I think that's what this fight's going to come down to, man. But personally, I think that Rakic is going to be able to control the range of the fight. He's going to be able to stay in the center of the octagon, especially if he works out and uses like the front kick and the jab a little bit and works behind those to kind of keep Oezdemir off him. Like, you don't want that pressure coming on to you. If he's just going for big shots, he might get pushed up against the cage, because if you miss on those, then it leaves opportunities for Oezdemir to capitalize and push you back. So not that he can't throw big strikes. I think it's just going to be important for Rakic to set those up first. If he's just throwing heat, could be a long night for him, and the advantage could go to Oezdemir. But I think that if he works a little bit patiently and establishes the range, the knockout will come for him in the later rounds. Probably the second or third. I would like to see Rakic remain a little bit not that he can't go out and just flatline him. I'm not saying that. But if he remains a little bit patient and kind of waits and, figures out that style and establishes the range early on, then the knockout will come later. I think that's what's going to happen in this fight. I also get nervous because when I watch Oezdemir, because when he's fighting a guy with serious knockout power that can rival and maybe even surpasses his own, and when he throws that big right hand that he has a lot of his power in, he overextends sometimes and it leaves him open. And like you see guys like Alir Latifi catch him with stuff, Anthony Smith, even a lot of guys have caught him with overextension on his shots. and if he overextends, whereas Rakic has more control in his striking, right? He just has more control, man. And I think that if you see Oezdemir overextend against him, the consequences of that mistake will be far graver than fighting a guy like Ilir Latifi, who's more of a wrestling base. So I'm taking Rakic second round KO. I think that's kind of when you'll see things heat up in this fight.